Just to alert everyone, we are streaming this because we'd promised that we would stream to the public. So this is being streamed. So if you're going to speak to the microphone if you can. This is one of the few times I've argued at the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals in front of 3 judges, but this is the first time I've ever had control over 3 judges. So I'm going to take full advantage. So please use the mic. My wife said the same thing when I left the house this afternoon.
How about that? You can teach an old dog new tricks. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us. I don't intend to talk very long. Maybe that's probably a good thing. We have supplied you with our budget commentary and the budget and so forth, and I'll try to answer any questions that you might have. And if I can't answer them, which I probably can't, we do have our fabulous clerk, Lisa Large, here, who can answer them. Also here is Judge Keith Washburn, making his first appearance, and masquerading as the law director back there is Judge-elect Jason Miller. And so this is my last time to stand before you and beg for money, for the court at least. I've been doing it for about 30 years now. And this is the first time I can remember that it was snow on the ground when we did it. That's terrible. Well, at any rate, I want to thank you all. I think over the years, the municipal court and city council and county commissioners, for that matter, have had a pretty good relationship with each other. You guys have been responsive to our needs. You've funded us well, and I think things have gone really well. And I see other communities where it doesn't work so well, where branches of government don't work so well together, and it's just a mess. It's terrible. So anyway, I want to thank you and the predecessors that you've had in your seats before for the service that you performed. So thank you very much. I don't think there's anything early in our budget that's out of the ordinary, unusual. In fact, if you just compare the numbers on this, I don't know which copies you have, but this one has sort of a blue copy. There's a year-to-date budget, the third from the right side. I assume, Crystal, that that's what the budget is currently. And so that shows 2734, and we're asking for next year 2750, only about a $16,000 increase. So we're really not asking for anything, I don't think, out of the ordinary. And I don't know how much of a chance you've had to look over the forms here and what we're asking for. But I'll try to answer any questions that you might have. I think the main 2 things that we were looking for were some capital improvements, which are included in the commentary at the end. We want to do some maintenance on the building to caulk all the windows, and we want to improve the sidewalk around the building because it's kind of a mess. Bricks coming loose and things uneven, and people have the possibility of tripping and so forth. And that's not just for the court, but it'll improve the city as well. So those are the 2 main capital projects we're looking at. But other than that, I don't really think there's anything too unusual. But if you've had a chance to look over it, I'll try and answer any questions that you have.
Just a couple. Judge Street, on regular salaries, it went from 1,052 to 1,052,000 to 1.233 million. But I'm trying to find the differences down in the detail. And
Which one is that?
Just at the very beginning of your personnel budget under salaries.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe again, I'm not sure. Okay.
You can say that about a lot of things.
And then there was like a $50,000 increase in probation services. And
Yeah,
not sure if that was,
There are some increases in probation. The probation services, though, are funded from a fund that we have have created ourselves.
okay,
So it doesn't come out of the general fund.
right.
So, and one of those things is like you've probably had a meeting, a committee meeting earlier about the vehicle that we want to purchase.
Yes.
So is that included in that amount? I'm not sure. I think that's probably, I think
Yes.
that's probably the biggest part of that.
So what Crystal's trying to dig into that, just the general fund expenditures, because a lot of your capital stuff comes out of your guys' funds. 3,500 for sealing the asphalt in the parking lot, 16,800 for caulking the windows, 15,000 for replacing sidewalk, and none of those are huge. And I'm just going to ask the question: can any of that come out of your building fund, or is that outside of your resources? And your answer is fine either way. I just want to have that conversation.
That's something we could talk about. I do think, though, that the city ought to be responsible for maintenance type items. I think both of those are maintenance type items. So I think the city legitimately ought to pay for that. But if there's funding shortages and things like that, I think there is some ability for us to, especially the caulking one.
Okay.
I think that ought to be a.
Because I think what I'm hearing is that, and I kind of agree with them, the sidewalks, that doesn't only help you guys, it helps the entire city. So that's actually a good item that is a citywide budget item. And we know it's going to be a tight budget year. So, if we could have that conversation, if you guys had, between you guys and Crystal, come up with what you think is right, I think either way we're fine. It's not that much money.
Yeah,
It's not like it's breaking the bank one way or another. But if we can share some of it here or there to kind of help out the general fund, it'd be great. If not, then we'll do what we have to do. I mean, is there something that, to get through a balanced budget, if we push it off out of the budget, then come back at it next year once we have a better idea what's going on with the paper mill or the medical glove manufacturer, maybe think about that as well. If there's something like, okay, we could push this off and do it next year once we have a better idea where the funds are at. And again, it's not a lot of money, but we may get to that point. I know Crystal's going to get to that point where she's counting pennies probably this year. So I just wanted to have that conversation. So.
But I also feel like if we don't take care of the building, so forth, I also feel like if we don't take care of that building, then it's going to end up like this building. So we need to make sure that we do.
Yes, I agree.
I agree
Right now,
too.
it's only costing 16,000. If we wait a year or two, what's it gonna cost us? to
Yeah.
So
Right.
those windows?
I'm just saying that if prioritize out of those three, if there's anything you can do out of building fund, that'd be great. If not, prioritize and then let Crystal know. So if she needs to cut something and come back at it next year, then we can have that conversation.
Typically, what we do is we do budget some miscellaneous funds in our building fund in case we have to make up anything that the general fund cannot. So we do have that ability, and of course you have the ability to appropriate monies that we ask for out of that fund during the year if it comes to that point. But I would like to say, as far as the windows are concerned, we've been in that building since 2013.
Yeah.
And you know the age of the building. So
Coming
for-
up on 40 years.
so
Or 30
for
years.
12 years, we've had the drafty windows and we've managed. And as Mrs. Preston said, we don't want it to end up like, this building and not have the
Yes.
ability to go forward without needing
Absolutely.
that expense in the future.
And I don't think anybody's saying not do it, but
Right.
if we can help share the burden a little bit, that'd be great. If not,
And I was
then-
just addressing the comment about putting it off for another year.
No, no, I
would
wouldn't
hope
be
that
in
we would
favor of
not
putting
have
it
to
off,
put
but
off.
if we come back at it in the spring when we have a better idea what our budget position is,
I understand.
if there's things that we can, maybe that's the asphalt, maybe that's, I don't know. That it's your guys' building, so give us an idea where we can work with you.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You came on a good day to talk about drafty windows, actually.
So with the payroll, that will be adjusted. They do have one more additional employee that's a laborer that's maintaining that building. And then there's some, a few part-time employees on here that I need to adjust their hours. So that number will come down.
All right. Thanks, Crystal. Any other questions? Thanks, Judge. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Judge Washburn, you want to say anything?
I'll wait till next year.
By the way, Judge Street, thank you for your service to the community over all these years. We really,
Yes, thank
really
you.
do appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thank you so very much.
Transit?
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Matthews. I'm the new transit director. I've been with transit since 2015 as a fleet manager. Most recently, I became the transit director. I am my 7th own director. We have some proposals. Amy can talk more of the numbers, operating numbers. She knows way more about that than I do. We did show a savings of operating in capital maintenance, to the tune of, I think, 9%. We do have some capital requests. Some various things. We are in need of at least one more computer and a few monitors. We had brought on a my maintenance mechanic lead, and he absorbed one of our computers that were used for training last year, so we're going to need to replace that. Computers are outdated, so we need to buy one that's up to date. Yes, monitors in the garage. Also, there's a few monitors that are outdated. They're starting to fade on the screens, so we want to replace those as well.
I'm going to kind of go through some of the papers that we do have. So the personnel shows 1 clerical, 2 secretary qualified, but we have 2 budgeted, 2 currently. Is that something that we need to clean up as well? We had that in another, was it Parks and Rec?
Yeah, so Parks and Rec is a little bit different because they don't really have a codified ordinance. I guess it does, I believe, but there's been some changes in the codified ordinance. I think
Okay.
3 years ago, the transit clerk was brought into the union where she was appointed. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, because her job title changed.
So was that done through the ordinances, or was that?
It was done through contract negotiations, and I don't believe the codified ordinance got updated.
Okay. Can you follow up on that if it needs updated? Kind
I
of
know
submit
it's
that up through,
updated.
submit that up through the,
I'll send it to Clint.
yeah. Okay. That way, I would rather have that cleaned up. Part-time bus operator. You're authorized 15, but you have 5.
We're short.
So you're asking for 2 more full-time next year, but then there was a comment that we have to get our part-time up. So
Yes.
maybe explain where we're at, where you're wanting to go, I guess.
there's a lot of time off for our full-time employees, so we have to back them up with part-time employees for sick, personal, and vacations. And some of them have been there for a while. It's quite a bit of time, so you have to have those people to back you up on the fixed route system. That's why there's that many part-timers. We won't normally hit that amount. What we do is we're allowed that amount, but we monitor it. And if we see where it's going to short some of the part-timers from even wanting a position there, we kind of back down as long as we can fill in all the routes. That's how we monitor that. It's nice to have that kind of lead, but we'll never have 10 part-timers. Just too many people.
And with the additional full-time positions, 3 were approved by council last year. We're just now getting ready to fill the first one starting next Monday, just because we haven't had enough part-timers to be able to add them. So that's why they're in there. You know, if we get to the point where we have enough part-timers to fill more, we will, because we absolutely have the trips for them.
So are you authorized 14 or are we authorized 17 now?
We have 14 plus 2 DD, which are also full-time, but they're
Okay.
different classification. So we have 16
Okay,
total.
I see it
Beginning
now.
Monday,
Okay.
we'll have 17. Because one of those new positions is being filled starting next Monday.
Okay, so that apparently that needs updated as well then?
That one was updated.
Okay. It's just not reflected in here. Okay. Let's go over to your capital budget. Training computers, monitors. Unexpected increase. What is that referring to?
That was the Crystal. You added that to yours. An expected increase. I believe that was for cost.
Oh, was that the
Possible
additional
cost.
funds we asked you to add Friday, maybe, Crystal?
Yeah, $924.
Do, but yeah, I believe those totals will come to those 3 transit computers, monitors, and unexpected increase. Those are all 3 related.
As a
But-
group, it's to go towards the computers and monitors. That was.
So actually the 924 is either for computers or
Yeah.
monitors.
I
it's-
assume
it's-
that may have came from IT, because that's who we asked how much we should budget.
Okay.
I didn't realize it was broken down that way. I just
Yeah.
have it as a flat 3 on mine.
That's confusing. Okay. I mean, I think the rest of it's fine. I did not see a long-term capital plan.
I do.
Do you have that? Okay.
One of our big costs is going to be vehicles. Of course, that is we use match to that, or contract revenue for match. Some of our vehicles are getting aged on them. It's been a few years since we actually requested. 2022 was our last vehicle purchase. That was a single van. We had vehicles from the 2021 era that were 100% funded, but they were delayed. We didn't get them until 2024. We did get them, but they're vans. We're splitting up our fleet to be 9 vans and 12 buses. There's backup buses in that configuration to where if we lose one, we have something to back it up with, make sure we make our route. We're requesting 3 vans and 1 bus, and that's for a total of $105,010. That's all, 80% of that is paid through the federal funds for SFI 2027. We have 3 vehicles pushing 100,000, 170,000, which is close to the disposal mark on these vehicles. Unfortunately, ODOT increased that in 2022 because of the shortage, vehicle shortage, and costs have doubled since then, since our last purchase. We have vans, 3 vans we left over from the COVID era. One was 111,000. We got 3 buses that are 170 plus. We've got on our 5-year plan. We're looking at probably 3 vehicles each year. We're going to be requesting to replace those existing 2017 vehicles. We have 6 total, and they're the ones that are closest to being up for disposal.
Okay, and then you guys had received a grant for electric vehicles.
Yes. We
Maybe
have 2
just
grants.
I don't know if everybody knows where you're at. I don't know that I know where you're at right now. I know that it was a thing you were
I can
working
give you
on.
the short and sweet of it.
Yeah.
It started in 2021. We were granted 6 vehicles through the ORZEP grant, and by the time we were getting ready to kick it off, no one factored in any infrastructure for it. They included chargers, but electric vehicles need to be housed in order for them to operate properly because of our weather swings. If we were in Florida or somewhere like that, you don't need air conditioning, but we're not. We need heat and air conditioning, which can take us total on a battery system. So we revamped that grant into an infrastructure grant. We're working on that right now. There's some NEPA stuff that we're working on to get that whole grant converted. It will not include any vehicles, I was told, as of Friday, but there's another grant called LONO, and that's a Ohio-funded grant. There's no match. They're already trying to push us. We're actually behind of all the groups that are on the LONO grant. Push us to go ahead and start ordering, but we got no infrastructure to support it right now. The infrastructure we're looking at initially started out with a 10 vehicle building, separate building. It's now boiled down to a 12 bus, 12 van extension on the existing building. We're trying to lower the cost. Our initial estimates came in at $7 million, and then part 2, if we went full electric, jumped another $14 to $14 million. So we pushed it back. We didn't want to get in there too much and not know, because it is a pilot program through ODOT. They're funding majority of it. I don't know where the ORZEP's going to land. We have set aside funds just in case. I know Luke has worked on that. I wasn't into those details. I don't have the details on that. That was from last year. But as it stands right now, they're waiting on us to tell them how many vehicles we want. And it started out, the LONO was 3 vehicles. And according to ODOT, they're going to ask for all the vehicles through that. We're waiting for the answer from the mayor on how many to start with. Moving forward, when we replace these vehicles in the future, as they start to wear out, and if the system works, then we'll move on to replacing them with electric vehicles as opposed to gasoline vehicles. I don't know if that helps you any, but
Yeah, it does. I mean, because most battery vehicles will last 400 to 500,000 miles
yes.
versus a gas engine or diesel engine. Now, the rest of the body, I don't know that they'll last that long.
Not normally. We
Yeah,
stopped ordering diesels.
So that's kind of where you start running into what is.
Well, we wanted to see if it worked
point?
for us as well, because we know there's going to be some fast chargers involved, and driver starts out in the morning. He'll preheat the vehicle while it's still charging, or he'll cool the vehicle while it's still on the charger, roll out, come back at lunchtime, plug it into a DC fast charger, and you can use it with a DC fast charger. You can do it in about 30 minutes to an hour or less to go back to a full charge, and that'll get them to the balance of the day. That's theoretically that's what we're thinking from what we read, and that's what the manufacturers are telling us we could do.
Who come up with the 400 to 500,000 mile on electric vehicles? Where'd that
That's
statistic
kind
come
of where
from?
the standard is right now.
Is it really?
With the good batteries, yeah.
gonna say-
Not with the ones they built 20 years ago.
I'm talking about, you
Yeah,
know,
there's a lot of
replacement of the
technology.
battery pack systems on that thing will be astronomical if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To replace the batteries on a Tesla is about
Fortunately,
20,000.
Yeah,
we can
20
only
to
buy
30.
Ford vehicles. They're built. They meet the compliance of federal funding of 70%. They're the only vehicle out there, and they're 5-year warranty on vehicle life and battery, which is the life expectancy of a van.
Okay.
And they give us a lot of option. We did a first feasibility study without infrastructure, and they gave us all the avenues. Here's where you buy them. Here's your support. Here's where to dispose of. And it's a real detailed, but it was of the time, and we completely changed how we run nowadays. We run our routing system completely changed. So that feasibility was kind of out the window, but it did give us all the connections for what we need.
Yeah, with your route changes, I think Lisa and I will probably try to get you up to Hopeton Village here soon too to talk to the residents up there. That's a good place to hear what's working, what isn't, type thing. But we'll work that out. On your general budget, I'm going to bounce around again. I'm sorry. You got salary fringes and you got other, and it jumps up $2.5 million. But I think most of that is Roscoe. Because that went from 3.9 to 6.25.
Yeah. and
Maybe
that
just tell
was-
us what.
What happened?
Yeah, I know you guys are expanding that, and there's some changes there, but I don't really know that I understand it all. So
So Roscoe operates on a fiscal year. So obviously budgeting now, I don't know what the renewal is going to be in July. And that's kind of what happened going into this year. So this year was a contract year. And every other year they just do an extension of that, even though it's a 1-year contract. But they extend it and you only do the proposal every other year. So with the numbers I submitted, it hiked up the mileage reimbursement rate for the providers, almost doubled it. So that was where the request came from a while back, where you guys approved additional funding to get through this year, which is, again, the increase for next year. And on top of the rate going up, I also had a provider who used to bill all 3 of his counties through me, because we have Ross, Hocking, and Vinton County residents because it's a combined job and family services. And he was only billing Ross through me, and he is now billing all 3 through me again. And those 2 that he brought back to me make up about half of my bill. So it was an increase on the rates and the bills I'm getting.
there's an increase in revenue and an increase in
Yeah.
cost of
So
providing
there's
it.
an
Got it.
increase in revenue that makes up for the cost plus an additional profit, because there is an admin fee that gets taken out of it.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Did it help? Guess I know it's confusing now. But we're learning. I mean,
And the last thing that I had was transit reserve, and I just need someone to explain that to me. What that separate item is, maybe Crystal or.
Every year there's a portion of their revenue. They do a calculation and that gets moved into transit reserve. And I can't remember, Amy might know more than I do on this at this point, but it's money that can only be, is it money that can only be used for capital items and then it's not included in the calculation for ODOT reimbursement? How does that work?
It can only be used for transit items. It doesn't necessarily have to be capital.
Okay.
But our transit fund is set up that way anyway. We're our own funds. So I guess for other entities that may matter.
Yeah.
For us, it really doesn't. But the transit reserve, we have a max that we're allowed to contribute to that. And that is the amount of our operating grant plus our capitalized maintenance grant plus the match amounts for both. 50% of that total is what our maximum balance in the transit reserve is allowed to be. And right now, a large portion of our matching every quarterly invoice we submit for reimbursement is contract revenue and income tax. Income tax, you're not allowed to move to transit reserve, so we use that first, and then we make up the rest with contract revenue. The surplus contract revenue after the match is what's allowed to be moved over to transit reserve. Right now, there is no limit on the amount you can move over as long as you don't go over the max balance. July of next year, that will change to you're only allowed to move 20% of the excess contract revenue. So, but the contract revenue increased dramatically, so it shouldn't affect us.
I'll probably ask that question again next year.
That's fine.
because I don't know that I understand it any better than what I did before. I understand a little bit, but just enough to know I need to learn a lot more about it. Okay.
So what contract funding we don't have to use for our match to get our reimbursement from our grant, we're allowed to move over to transit reserve, but the transit reserve does have a cap. So it won't always all get moved. And when there is a transfer, you'll see it come before council because you guys have to approve it before we move it. We haven't done one since 2023. Is that what we determined? I did send a request. That was the additional funding for payment to vendors. But yeah, you should see one coming at some point. I did send a request over to Clint for legislation to do one. So we'll have it close to max again when that happens.
Any questions? Anything else? All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
President Shoemaker and members of council, I thank you for this opportunity to prepare or to submit our proposed budget for 2026 here this evening. Crystal has passed out hard copies of what we will be talking about briefly here this evening. I believe the hard copies are exactly the same as the ones that she had emailed over the weekend, so there's nothing new in there. So this year, the engineering budget is a little bit different than the past years. We are basically made up of four things this year. We will have the 5-year capital plan, we'll have the engineering division, we'll have the flood wall division, and we have the landfill division. And those will be reflected in that budget proposal before you. Now, one thing we have done this year is we spent a substantial amount of time reviewing the historical expenses that we've had in the engineering fund. So in preparing this proposal, we have pretty accurate numbers, we believe, in terms of our operating expenses. We didn't just sit down and add a number and say this is what it ought to be. We actually looked at the historical expenses there. We also have submitted, or is in that proposal, narratives explaining everything that we're proposing to purchase this year. So you can look through that narrative at your convenience and see what we're talking about. Now, I'm not going to take up a lot of time this evening going through all those details. You have them before you, so you can read the numbers yourself. But there are two things in there that I think I ought to spend a little bit of time explaining to you why they're in there. The first line item is 228-420-7685, which is outside contracts in the flood wall division. We've got a couple things there. We have 13 pumps in the various lift stations or pump stations around the city. And each one of those, some of those have 3 pumps, some have 2. So over a period of time, those pumps need to be maintained basically by changing the oil or changing the grease and so on. Now, it's not like you get a grease gun and go out there and just start pumping grease into them. It's a situation where we have to have a contractor come in, flush the lines, install new grease and new oil into the system. We have proposed this work before, but we just thought that we should probably put it in the budget again for next year. That's a pretty large item. It can be postponed again. I will say that here this evening, but mainly we just wanted you to be aware that at some point in time, that's going to have to be done. So if you look at the capital plan, of the 5-year capital plan, we have several years out that we're proposing to do 3 pumps at a time. So that'll just give you some future ideas of what's going to have to be done eventually. The other item is also in the flood wall, 228-420-7607. You will see that our electric request for the coming years is quite a bit more than what the past was. The issue there is that's what our costs were this year. If we have a lot of flood events or rain events that we have to pump those pumps more often, then that's why we're requesting the electric. That again is a historical number that we surpassed this year. And actually, I think we came back to council earlier to request more funds for the electric costs for the pumps this year. So that's one reason that's increased. The other area that I want to note here is the landfill. And that's item 456-040-7904 under cap, lands, and buildings. There we have kind of a large increase of what it was last year. It is a continuing process in which we pay Ponde LLC, which is an environmental engineering firm, to come in and sample, inspect, and maintain the recovery wells or the sampling wells there on the landfill for the groundwater. We have a proposal in your package there of what the cost is going to be next year, which is roughly $34,000. But we also have a pending requirement from the Ohio EPA that we have to make a revision to our explosive gas monitoring plan. And we have different proposals for that. It's in the range of 14 or 15,000. So that's why it went from the 30-something to the 40-something in that line item. Just wanted to make you aware of that.
Is that increase, is that going to be reimbursable with some of the lawsuit stuff or anything, or is that not? I mean, either way, it's just a question. Okay.
So basically, that's the only items that we had a large increase in. Most of our line items we tried to reduce to what would be a manageable number. So that's kind of where we're at there. Any questions?
I think it's in your personnel out of classification, $119,000.
Yeah, that would be something Crystal would have to answer.
And then this is just a question, because I know here we're using general fund money when we put it into capital, but I think it confuses people when we do things like maintenance out of capital funds in other departments, whereas we shouldn't be doing it. So like when I look at computer software, Carlson software and the HydroCAD software, we're not purchasing those are just maintenance contracts.
That is a subscription.
Is there a line in the regular general fund to do that instead of moving that money into capital fund? Just to clean up, because we shouldn't be doing that anywhere. But here it's a little bit different because we're using general fund money to put into capital funds to pay for it. But I think it starts becoming confusing to the entire city when we keep using what is classified as capital funds for maintenance and repairs. And so that same question goes to the flood wall maintenance. If we're just maintaining those pumps, if we're replacing them, that's a capital. But if we're maintaining, is there a place in general fund to do that out of versus? Again, it's one or the other, but it started off as general fund money. I'd rather just keep it in general fund than confuse people throughout the city. Go, well, he uses capital funds for that. Why aren't you letting me use capital funds for that?
I can't answer that question personally.
Right.
That's something that the auditor.
But that's general fund money, right? That we're moving into that line. So if it's truly just maintenance of those pumps, then shouldn't it just be in general fund maintenance? I know that's not how we've done it. And I'm not. So general fund does not have any, flood walls not have any general fund money? So there is no general fund lines for flood wall. Could we change that next year? So we're not confusing people that, well, you're using capital funds for maintenance here, but you're saying we can't use it here. Okay, he's got it listed under his capital, so that's where I'm getting confused then.
We can move it, but we can move it up into like flood wall.
Okay. No, I'm not saying take it out of flood wall. I'm saying, and I don't know that we need to do it this year, but I think it's something we need to transition to where capital funds are for capital expenditures. And I guess the same thing for landfill maintenance, monitoring, testing, and reporting. That's not really a capital expense. It's really an operational expense.
Right.
So again, the same question, because I think it just becomes confusing for everybody. Right. And if we can't do it this year, at least we do it next year to start that transition. Because I know it takes some work to do those things. I don't know how much work it takes, so I don't want to assume. I thought the rest of it looked fine from what I could see. I just had questions on that. And it's not on spending the money, because those are all things we need to be taking care of and doing the right way. It's just where that money, how we account for that money and how it's being spent, so that we don't create confusion across the city. Other questions?
Thank you.
So previously, code enforcement was what? Hey, Crystal.
The 161 will include payroll for the code enforcer and the building official.
So the code enforcer is at the zoning?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So 2 positions is what we're looking at here?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Want to apologize. I'll have a better packet for everybody next year. It's just been a year getting everything together, but the numbers are all here. So I'm going to give a quick overview of the department since last year, just to kind of show you guys where we're at. We took back commercial building inspections from the county back in July. And since that date, from the 1st of July until the end of October, we brought in about $27,000 back from the county, back into the city fund. For the year, we've collected about $96,000 towards the general fund through permit fees and stuff like that. So we've done about 700 permits this year and about 1,200 inspections. The county's still helping out with some of their inspections. We're paying them for those. So some of our, you'll see later on, some of our, outside contracts goes to the county for inspections. So I guess I'm gonna let you guys ask questions. Be my first time with you guys, so.
You answered my one question on the outside contract. So they're still doing the electrical.
They're doing the electrical and they're doing my backup. Also in outside contracts is our commercial plans reviewer, who I sub out when I get too far behind. And then we have a consultant for the zoning. Any tricky situations, we send out to a consultant to kind of give us a third-party reading.
Okay. Electric, your backup, consultant, and you said plans?
Plans examiner, yeah, for
Okay.
commercial. And I do also believe in the outside contracts. We do have some money in there for some demolitions if we have emergencies. We need to tear some properties down.
So with us taking back over commercial and residential, and Crystal might be better on this one. And you said we've already brought in, I can't remember, 90-some thousand this year since taking it back over. How much are we projecting revenue from? Is there a ballpark?
I do have what we have paid the county to do in the past couple of years. I have some numbers for that we're not paying anymore. Like in 2023, we paid the county $67,000 for inspection services. That went down last year to $31,000, and year to date right now we're just over $14,000 we paid since I've been on staff.
But also those 2 years, they were also doing all the commercial, but they were taking in all the fees.
They were collecting all the fees for commercial.
And now we're going to start collecting those fees.
Yep.
So for building permits, right now I have 110. That's probably going to change. And then for building permits from the county, I have 15,000. And that's probably going to change. And then zoning permits, we've got 10,000. But I still need to do some more research and investigation on that.
On the zoning side, up until the fee increases you guys did last year, we never collected any money on zoning. And like she said, we've collected about 10,000 just on zoning permits so far.
Do you know how much the county received in commercial building for the city the last 2 years?
Yes, I do. Ross County collected for commercial in 2023, $150,389. In 24, they collected $101,852, and then from January till July, they collected $57,919.
Have we hired a zoning person yet?
Yes, we've hired our zoning and code enforcement officer.
Okay. When did that person start?
He started about 3 months ago.
Okay,
So
good.
he's taking over pretty much the zoning reviews and taking care of those. And here I'm thinking first year I'll have him out on the streets doing some property maintenance.
Okay, so at this point, workload is manageable?
Getting there.
Okay, all right. Okay,
I inherited a mess, so it's trying to get that fixed.
okay. Any other questions? No? All right.
At any point in time within the next 2 years, do you think you're going to need another code enforcement officer by any chance, or anybody?
My thinking for the next year or two is to hire a hybrid, like a building inspector / code enforcement, kind of help out on both sides. Kind of realizing that we're gonna always have a small team, so we'll do some cross training and get the stuff done. If in the future, I'd definitely like to hire some more help. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brandon.
Hello, Council. Thanks for your time this evening. President Shoemaker, Clerk Moss, thank you. Obviously, I'm not the Utilities Director. That position is vacant right now, so I'm here filling in today. I want to mention up front that, I'm not going to know every detail that you guys might have questions on. I apologize for that. Although we do have a good Utilities Secretary who's given me lots of notes for this evening, so I'll be able to reference those if you guys just give me a second between questions. I know there might be some questions about capital items and maintenance and repair. I think I've noticed that theme across other department presentations, and I just want to preface that question with, this is how I was instructed, or the Utilities Department was instructed to enter these requests were into capital. That doesn't mean we can't go over them. You guys have specific questions about them. And that's that. I think if we kind of stick to one fund at a time, that would be very helpful to me. I know that there's water admin, for example, and sewer admin are pretty much, they reflect each other, almost mirror each other, identical. So it kind of makes sense to float in between those. But if you guys have any specific questions about something, then we can, when we get to it, I'd very much appreciate it. That'll just help me be able to reference things a little quicker. Also would like to mention that the administration's biggest concern right now is with water and the paper mill closing down and the loss of revenue there. It's, we're double checking some figures, but we believe that it could be a 15% loss in revenue when it comes to water, which would be in the $650,000 to $700,000 yearly range. So significant hit to water due to the paper mill closure. However, they are up and running. They're doing other things. So what is the true loss? We obviously probably won't know for quite some time. That being said, we can start with water admin because I think that's probably first on everyone's list.
Clint, the one thing I saw at first was under other in that category, the insurance from $150,000 to $640,000.
Yeah, it's a great question. I can get you answered on that. I know Auditor Spending will have to head out, and she's the one that enters that figure. So I'm not sure on the increase on that.
Okay, the next one under that same area is general reimbursement, 184 to 244.
Can you give me the line number? I'm sorry.
Yeah, 7729.
Oh, okay. What are you showing? I'm showing it's the same as the previous year. I'm sorry. You're saying there's an increase? Or you're asking
Oh,
what it
no, I'm
is?
sorry. You are correct. I was looking at what has been spent this year versus what was, yep, you're correct.
Fine. I'm not sure what general reimbursement is, though, so that's a good question for me to learn. One
My-
increase is in outside contracts. You guys might have questions about that, but it's where we pay billing fees out of, so where we mail out bills, pay for postage through that vendor. There's the increase there. It used to be in a different line. Say that again, Councilwoman. I just wanted to make reference to 710-520-7685, which is outside contracts. Initial budget was for this year was 22,000. We've spent around 30 thus far, so with a couple months left, that's why we're asking for 42,000 next year, and that's where we pay the vendor to send bills out of, water bills.
The city sends out water bills every month.
Yes.
And of course, that cost has to be increasing because of postage alone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious why we, or have we ever looked into a situation where not everybody necessarily wants a bill sent to them. They can take it as, an electronic bill or whatever. Is there a particular reason why we still mail to everyone, even the auto pay people, which, I'm one, and
yeah.
I'm used to getting that in all, my other utilities outside of the cities. Is that something that is feasible, or something we can do at some point in time instead of mailing bills all the time? Because I know that has to be an expensive.
Yeah, it is, as you guys can see. That's a good question. I know that personally I'm set up for paperless billing, and there's a cost savings to that for the user. But there's lots of ways to enroll, and everyone's kind of different, resident to resident in the city. I think so you can be paperless, but also not have ACH set up or like a automatic cost. So there's not one user really. I mean, that's not being truthful, but everyone's kind of different.
But in other words, you're telling me we actually do have it now?
We do have paperless billing. You can enroll it, but we don't force that on anyone.
Okay, I was going to say, because I wasn't even aware, and maybe that's why, that's why I haven't signed up for it.
Sure.
Maybe that's something we could maybe incorporate in one of the bills or
Yep.
something to let people know, because I would just as soon get it as paperless billing along with that. But
yeah, definitely.
But even though I was just curious about that, because I know that the cost has to be high to mail out those bills all the time.
Yeah, that's a good question. I can see if we can add a note, or maybe the note's already on there, but I'll let you know. Maybe we only do it once a year or something. Maybe we can do it more often. We can look into that.
Well, I'll certainly be looking into it now.
Definitely.
Thank you for the information.
Not a problem.
Okay, if you want to go on into the next is water supply and treatment. Under other, so it's like the next page down. Electric, 200 to 250, but we've only spent 174 this year. And I don't know if it's the right number.
Yeah.
Chemicals,
Yeah.
375 to 500, but if we're reducing our output by 15%, is that a reasonable number?
Mm-hmm.
And they're enterprise funds, so they're a little bit different. Outside contracts, and I don't know what all that entails, 275 to 405.
Yeah, I can give you a breakdown on all those. One moment. Yeah, I think the electrical cost is basically for supplier costs increase. I think there's changes coming this November or this month, I guess, and that's kind of got them spooked for whatever reason. So I think we'll have some time before next year to be able to hone in on that based on new rates that we'll see come December. But yeah, that's a good question about chemicals as well. I know that there's a significant increase on lime. Water department reported as a 30% increase on lime costs that they expect in 2026. So that's why you'll see the increase in chemicals. I will have to ask the water department for clarification on outside contracts. I think they have lime. They've definitely referenced lime twice, so I want to make sure they're not doubling their costs there, because I don't know if they plan on paying it out of chemicals or outside contracts or both, but it seems like it's a duplicate to me, so I just want to double check that figure in outside contracts. But chemicals, that's why you'll see the large increases basically due to lime.
Okay, Clint, when I went through the rest of it, I did not come across anything else in the other departments, but I'll open it up to see if anybody else had questions. I think the big thing is that insurance in the water administration, that was kind of a huge, almost $500,000 jump.
Yeah, that's significant.
Is there, I mean, I didn't see anything else. Was there anything else that you wanted to highlight?
One moment. I'll look here. With the move to Pepsi, they've tried to plan for that the best they could with an increase in gas and electric costs and in copier costs and telephone costs, but some of those costs are unknown at the moment. But you might see that reference kind of throughout on some slight increases. I just wanted to make a note of that. It's probably 90% of the time, probably, of what I've noticed, it's tied to Pepsi costs. I just want to make a note of that. Go through them all here. One big increase is can't leave well enough alone, but sewer collection, you guys might notice, and stormwater maintenance and repair. Dean should have got out of here while he had the chance, but that increase from $40,000 this year to $200,000. That's due to Bellevue, Keller, and Limestone projects. Just wanted to make note of that because that's quite the increase. Again, that's 750-532-7666. Stormwater maintenance repair, and we're going from $40,000 to $200,000 this year. And capital is quite lengthy. I will say that the mayor and Auditor Spetnagel haven't had a chance to sit down together and review their capital requests. And this capital request is kind of unfiltered. This came right from the supervisors from each department. Just wanted to make note of that it hasn't really, this is kind of the rough draft of that, but I'm prepared to answer any questions you guys might have to the best of my ability concerning capital.
Okay. So there is no long-term plan because you guys don't have a utilities director. So I know that there was one in place. So maybe if the people in those departments kind of just dig that up just so that they kind of know where we're going.
Sure.
Again, under water supply and treatment, general maintenance repair, PTI application for Main Street pump station, EPA mandated tank inspections, miscellaneous plant repairs. Should those be under capital? Should they be in general fund again? Because I think we're creating, okay, well, utilities does it. Why can't we do it here? Because we do have 3 dedicated capital funds, police, fire, and Parks and Rec, that we can't do that with capital funds. And so it just creates, and for them, they're an enterprise fund, they could just do it out of a operational line instead of a capital line.
Yeah.
Same underwater distribution, miscellaneous repairs, lead sewer line inventory. That's not capital, obviously.
Yeah, we've one note on that. That was a 2025 item as well, and they've spent $0 on that. So I'm gonna look into why they essentially it's a carry forward almost. I don't know if the project they're ready to kick off the project or not, but you're right. These all could be moved to operation. If I mean,
Right. If we want to be consistent
technically.
throughout the city, and it makes it easier for everybody to understand. And so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Under sewer supply and treatment, you got maintenance and repair. You got unanticipated expenses and maintenance repairs.
Yeah.
Miscellaneous, root control. So those are things that I just think we need to clean up how we do things better.
Okay.
Question on Marietta Lift Station. I don't know if you know, I know that is a huge issue for development. So when we replace that lift station, are we looking to improve its capacity, or are we looking just to maintain capacity?
I think it's fair to say that the administration wants to, expand its capacity. There's been lots of correspondences lately that I'll have to update the mayor on, and some meetings I've been attending, and I think that he'll be able to better answer some of those questions here soon than I can now, just based on some recent correspondences. Just to give everyone an update, I mean, we went out to bid for the Marietta Lift Station. The lowest bid was still, I believe, there was like a $900,000 gap on what we had available to spend. So since then, we've applied for an OPWC, so Ohio Public Works Commission, loan for, I believe it might have been $1 million to cover that gap. And we will not know if we've received that loan until next June. Thank you, Dean. So we're, I guess, kind of in a standstill for that, and unless we can identify, another funding source in the meantime, and then we could decline that loan.
Okay, and I think so. Any growth out north needs our capacity, and our capacity. It's not just our capacity at the sewer plant; it's our capacity to get it from there to there. And that's where my question is, because I understand there's 3 pumps there right now, and the plan a couple years ago was to replace the 3 pumps with the opportunity to add a 4th pump to it at some point. And I just don't know where we're at right now, or if anybody knows where we're at right now with what we're doing. And because I think whatever we do, we need to make sure that we're looking not just at meeting the needs today, but at meeting the needs for potential growth down the road. Mm-hmm. And that comes to my second question on the grinder pumps. We got a loan for like $1.1 million. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah, I apologize.
But then I'm seeing $60,000 in there, so I'm confused, I guess.
Sure, I can get a better breakdown for you on that. It was a CDS award, I believe, for this $60K here. Again, Dean can jump in if he'd like, but I believe this is for Cabbage Hill. I don't know if that's correct, which is Casa del Taco on Western Avenue. Those homes kind of just right to the west or behind them almost. We had an agreement in place, kind of shooting from the hip here. So I apologize. It'd probably be better if I just sent an update via email once I be able to double check this. But there's an agreement, decades old, that we supply services to these homes, and we're running into some issues out that way. We need to replace the grinder pumps.
But the loan, so that's a separate line, but the loan for the other grinder pumps are the ones that support the Marietta Lift Station. Is that correct?
I'll double check that and be able to answer that for you.
Okay.
I apologize for not doing that.
I assume that we plan to do that. I mean, I don't know. That's why, I guess why I'm asking is that if we applied for the loan and we got it, are we planning on it? Because I don't see it in here. Okay. So it's just a question.
Sure. Yeah, I'll get that answer.
Any other questions? Greg, that's your chair. Any other? Are you good? Okay.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thanks, Clint. Appreciate it.
We have about 20 minutes, so